I watched my son cut my name out of every family photo at his new house, and I said nothing because I knew something he didn't. This is about what happens when you give everything to your children and they decide you're no longer useful. My name is Helen, and I raised 2 boys on my own after their father died when they were 12 and 14. I worked double shifts at the hospital for 17 years. I never remarried because I wanted them to have everything. College funds were paid in full. Down payments for their first homes came from my savings. I attended every game and every graduation and every milestone they ever had. When my oldest son Marcus got engaged to a woman named Vanessa, I was happy for him. She seemed pleasant enough at first, polite but distant. She called me Mrs. Chen even after I asked her to call me Helen. The wedding planning started and I offered to help pay. Marcus said they had it covered, but thank you. I thought that was fine because I had raised him to be independent. Then the seating chart came. My younger son David called me one evening and his voice sounded strange. He asked if I had seen where I was sitting at the wedding. I hadn't received my full invitation yet, so I said no. He went quiet for a moment and then told me I should maybe talk to Marcus. I called Marcus and asked about the seating. He said everything was handled and I would get my details soon. Something in his tone felt off. The invitation arrived 3 days later. I was seated at table 18, in the back corner, near the kitchen doors. My own son's wedding, and I was placed with distant cousins I had met twice. Vanessa's parents had the table of honor next to the bride and groom. Her grandmother was at table 2. I was at table 18. I called Marcus again. He said Vanessa had done the seating chart and it was based on how close people were to both of them. I asked how his mother, who raised him alone, was not close to him. He sighed and said I was making it difficult. He said Vanessa's family was larger and more involved and this was just how it worked out. I told him I understood. I didn't argue. I just said I would see him at the wedding. The wedding came and I sat at table 18. I wore a simple navy dress I had bought on sale. Vanessa's mother wore a gown that probably cost more than my monthly pension. During the speeches, Vanessa's father talked about gaining a son. No one mentioned me, not even Marcus during his thank you speech. He thanked Vanessa's parents for their support and love. He thanked his best man. He thanked the wedding planner. I sat in the back and smiled. After the wedding, things shifted. Marcus and Vanessa moved into a large house 2 towns over. They invited me for dinner once. The house was stunning. Expensive furniture and art on every wall. Vanessa showed me around, but she touched my arm and guided me like I was a tourist. She pointed out that the guest room was currently being used as her yoga studio. I understood what she meant. There was no room for me there. Months passed and my calls to Marcus became shorter. He was always busy with work or with Vanessa's family events. David still called me every week. He had married a kind woman named Lily, and they had me over often. One evening, David told me that Marcus had asked him for money, a significant amount. Something about an investment opportunity. David said no because he and Lily were saving for a baby. Marcus apparently got upset and said David was being selfish. I didn't say anything, but I felt something harden in my chest. 2 years went by. I saw Marcus maybe 4 times. Always brief visits. Always at restaurants halfway between us. Never at his home anymore. Then my brother passed away. Uncle Thomas had never married and had no children. He had been a quiet man who worked in engineering and lived simply. I was his only living sibling. The lawyer called me 3 weeks after the funeral. Uncle Thomas had left me everything. His estate was worth $4 million. He had invested wisely and lived on very little. I sat in the lawyer's office and couldn't speak. $4 million. The lawyer asked if I wanted to make any immediate decisions. I said no. I said I needed time to think. I didn't tell anyone. Not David. Not Marcus. Not anyone. I wanted to see what would happen if nothing changed. Life continued exactly as it had. Marcus called once every few months, short conversations about his job and Vanessa's new hobbies. He never asked how I was managing on my pension. He never offered to help with anything. Then one day he called with excitement in his voice. He said he and Vanessa were buying a bigger house. He said it was a stretch financially, but they found a place they loved. He said they were looking at creative financing options. I asked if they had considered waiting. He said no because the market was competitive. Then he went quiet. Then he asked if I had anything saved that I might want to invest in their future. I felt something cold wash over me. I asked what he meant. He said I was getting older and wouldn't need much, and this could be a way to secure my legacy. He said the house would eventually be part of his inheritance anyway. He said it made sense to help now when they really needed it. I told him I would think about it. He said they needed an answer soon. I said I understood. I hung up and sat in my small apartment for a long time. The next day I called David. I asked him if Marcus had mentioned anything about me. David hesitated and then admitted that Marcus had complained I was being difficult about helping with the house. I asked what Marcus had said exactly. David said Marcus told him I was sitting on savings and being stubborn about sharing. Marcus had apparently said I wouldn't need money where I was going anyway. He had defended me. He told Marcus that was a horrible thing to say. Marcus had laughed it off as a joke. I thanked David and told him I loved him. He said he loved me too and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. That week I made appointments, first with the lawyer, then with a financial advisor, then with my doctor for a regular checkup. I had the advisor set up a trust. The terms were specific. David and Lily would receive $3 million. The remaining $1 million would go to the hospital where I had worked for scholarships in my late husband's name. Marcus would receive nothing. The trust was irrevocable. I signed everything and felt lighter than I had in years. Marcus called 2 more times asking about the house money. I told him I didn't have anything to give. He became angry. He said I was being selfish. He said I had always favored David. He said I owed him for everything he had put up with growing up. I asked what he meant by that. He said I had been overbearing and embarrassing, and he had spent years trying to distance himself from my working-class background. He said Vanessa's family had real class. He said I wouldn't understand. I told him I understood perfectly. I hung up. That was 8 months ago. Last week David called me crying. He and Lily had just found out she was pregnant. He said they were scared about money in the future. I told him to come over. When they arrived, I made tea. I sat them down and told them about Uncle Thomas. I told them about the inheritance. I told them about the trust. David stared at me. Lily started crying. I explained that the money was theirs and they would never have to worry. David asked about Marcus. I told him Marcus made his choice. David hugged me for a long time. He said he didn't know what to say. I said he didn't have to say anything. 2 days ago, Marcus found out. David hadn't told him, but apparently Vanessa's mother knew someone who knew someone at the bank. Money news travels fast in certain circles. Marcus showed up at my apartment. He didn't knock. He pounded on the door. I let him in. His face was red. He started yelling immediately. He said I had betrayed him. He said I had stolen his inheritance. He said David had manipulated me. He said I was a bitter old woman punishing him for having standards. I let him finish. Then I spoke quietly. I told him I gave him everything for 29 years. I told him I worked myself to exhaustion to give him opportunities. I told him I never asked for anything except respect. I told him he couldn't even give me a decent seat at his wedding. I told him he erased me from his life the moment I stopped being useful. I told him the money went to someone who actually loved me. He tried to argue. He said I was misunderstanding everything. He said Vanessa had just been trying to make the wedding flow well. He said he had been busy with work. He said family was complicated. I asked him when he last asked how I was doing. Really asked. Not just a courtesy question during a rushed phone call. He couldn't answer. I told him I had made my decision and it was final. I told him he should leave. He stood there shaking. Then he said something I will never forget. He said I would die alone and it would be my own fault. He said I was pushing away my only successful son. He said David would waste the money and I would have nothing to show for my pathetic life. I walked to the door and opened it. I told him to get out. He left. I haven't heard from him since. David comes over twice a week now. He brings groceries and we cook together. Lily is showing now, and they ask me to come to every doctor's appointment. They're making the spare room in their house into a nursery, but they want me to stay there as often as I want. They asked if I would help raise the baby, not as a babysitter, as a grandmother who is loved and wanted. I said yes. Yesterday I was going through old photos. I found pictures of Marcus as a little boy. He was smiling and holding my hand. I remember that day. We had gone to the park, and he had told me I was the best mom in the world. I don't know where that little boy went. Maybe he's still in there somewhere. Maybe not. But I know I did everything I could. I gave him love and opportunity and a foundation. What he built on it was his choice. I sleep well now. My conscience is clear. The money is with someone who values me as a person and not as a resource. Next month, David and Lily are taking me on a trip. Nothing extravagant. Just a week at a quiet beach town. Lily said she wants the baby to be born, knowing I was part of their joy from the beginning. I think about Marcus sometimes. I wonder if he will ever understand. I wonder if Vanessa knows what he gave up. I wonder if that big house they bought makes them happy. But mostly I don't wonder. Mostly I just live. I have my dignity. I have my peace. I have a son who loves me and a daughter-in-law who respects me. I have a grandchild coming who will know my voice and my stories. Marcus made his choice when he put me at table 18. I made mine when I put my love where it was returned. Some people think inheritance is about fairness. It's not. It's about honoring the relationships that actually existed, not the ones people pretended to have when money was involved. I am 72 years old. I worked hard my entire life. I earned the right to decide who deserves my legacy. And I chose the son who never made me prove I was worthy of a seat at his table. I received a letter last month. It came in a cream envelope with careful handwriting. I didn't recognize it at first. Inside was a card from Vanessa. She wrote that she was sorry for how things had unfolded. She said Marcus had been under a lot of stress. She said family was important, and perhaps we could find a way forward. She included their new address, the house they had stretched themselves thin to buy. I read it twice and then put it in a drawer. No response felt necessary. David asked me about it when he noticed the envelope. I told him what it said. He shook his head and said Vanessa only reached out because the money was real now. He said when I was just a retired nurse on a pension, nobody cared. But $4 million made me relevant again. I knew he was right. I told him I wasn't interested in being relevant to people who made me invisible. 3 weeks after that, Marcus called. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. His voice was different. Quieter. He said he had been thinking about what I said. He said maybe he had been unfair. He said maybe we could talk. I asked him what changed. He went silent for a long moment. Then he admitted that Vanessa's father had lost a lot of money in a bad investment. The family that seemed so perfect was struggling now. Suddenly Marcus was seeing things differently. He said he realized how hard I must have worked. He said he wanted to make things right. I asked if he would have called if I didn't have the inheritance. He didn't answer. I told him I thought that was answer enough. He started to say something else, but I told him I needed to go. I hung up feeling tired but not guilty. You can't buy back years of disrespect with a phone call made out of desperation. David's baby arrived on a Tuesday morning. A little girl with dark hair and her mother's eyes. They named her Grace. Grace Helen. I held her in the hospital and cried. Lily squeezed my hand and said she couldn't imagine doing any of this without me. David took a photo of me holding Grace. In the picture, I'm smiling. Really smiling. Not the polite smile I wore at table 18. Not the careful smile I gave Marcus during our distant lunches. A real smile. That photo is on my refrigerator now. Next to it is Grace's first footprint. Next to that is the ultrasound picture. My small apartment is full of life now in a way it hasn't been in years. Marcus sent a gift when Grace was born. An expensive baby blanket from some luxury store. The card said, "Congratulations to David and Lily." It didn't mention me at all. Even now, even trying to reconcile, he couldn't bring himself to include me. David wanted to send it back. I told him to keep it. It's just a blanket. It doesn't mean anything. What means something is that David takes paternity leave seriously. What means something is that Lily asks my advice. What means something is that Grace will grow up knowing I chose to be present. I think about legacy differently now. It's not about the money I left behind. It's about the moments I showed up for. Marcus got the version of me that sacrificed everything. David gets the version of me that finally learned my worth. Grace will only ever know the version of me that is wanted. That feels like the best inheritance of all. Last week I ran into one of Vanessa's cousins at the grocery store. She made a point of talking to me. She said she heard I had come into some money. She said how wonderful for me. She said Marcus and Vanessa were doing well despite their challenges. She emphasized the word challenges like I was supposed to ask. I just smiled and said I was glad to hear it. She looked disappointed. I paid for my groceries and left. I don't owe anyone my story. I don't owe anyone an explanation. I made decisions based on years of evidence, not on one bad day or one thoughtless moment, but on a pattern of choices that showed me exactly who valued me and who didn't. Tonight, David is bringing Grace over. We're going to make dinner together. Something simple. Lily is craving pasta. I bought fresh tomatoes from the farmer's market. David will chop vegetables while I hold Grace. We'll eat together at my small kitchen table, the one that seats 4 comfortably. No assigned seating, no hierarchy. Just family. The family that chose each other. I am 72 years old. I have a warm home. I have enough money to live comfortably. I have a son who calls me just to hear my voice. I have a daughter-in-law who values my presence. I have a granddaughter who will know she is loved. Marcus has a big house and a wife whose family is losing their money. He has stress and regret and the knowledge that he gambled on the wrong things. I don't wish him harm. I just no longer wish him anything at all. That indifference is my peace. Some stories end with dramatic confrontations. This one ends with me sitting in my living room. Grace is asleep in a bassinet nearby. David and Lily are washing dishes in my kitchen. I can hear them laughing about something. Outside my window, the sun is setting. Everything is ordinary. Everything is quiet. Everything is exactly as it should be. This is what winning looks like when you've spent your whole life losing yourself for others. It looks like finally knowing the difference between being needed and being loved, and choosing love every single time.